Warrior Cats, The Sun Trail by Erin Hunter, Chapter 15. Glowing padded through the trees, following Clear Sky's lead. Jackdaw's Cry, Falling Feather, and Turtletail hunted with them. As always, when he left the moor for the forest, Greywing felt uncomfortable. He couldn't hunt down his prey by running when every few paw steps a bramble tendril would trip him, and when the air was laden with so many scents, it was hard to follow the one he wanted. Falling Feather had just caught a mouse when a loud screech echoed through the trees. It was followed by crashing in the undergrowth and the furious yowling voices of more than one cat. Clear Sky froze, his ears flicking forward. "That's Moonshadow!" he exclaimed. He sprang forward in the direction of the sounds, and the others followed. As Greywing wound his way among the ferns, he heard Turtletail meow behind him. Wouldn't you just know that he'd be the one to get into trouble? Greywing remembered the two-leg place and the fight with the kitty pets. Moonshadow shouldn't go off by himself, but we still have to help him. The brothers burst into the clearing, the other cats hard on their paws. At the far side, Greywing spotted Moonshadow locked in a caterwauling bundle of fur with three other cats. The struggling hewed back and forth at the edge of a bramble thicket. A tail length or so away was the body of a squirrel. With the ear-splitting shriek, Clear Sky hurtled across the clearing. He grabbed one cat by the shoulder and hauled him away from Moonshadow. Greywing leaped on top of another and cuffed the cat around the ears until she let go of his friend. He wasn't prepared for the cat to turn on him, or for the ferocity of the attack. Before he could think about defending himself, claws were raking down his side. He tried to bring up his hind paws to thrust the cat off, but the cat wrapped her forepaws around his neck and clung tightly. Greywing jerked his head away to avoid teeth aimed for his throat. He was dimly aware of more yowling and skirmishing around him. The taste of blood was in his mouth. "This cat wants to kill me," he thought, his senses fogged with pain. Then a heavy weight landed on top of him and his opponent. Greywing almost despaired until he heard a familiar voice raised in an enraged yowl. "Get off him!" Turtletail! The other cat rolled away and Greywing staggered to his paws. He saw that all three strange cats had broken off the fight and stood glaring and hissing at the mountain cats. Greywing got a good look at them for the first time. One was the black she-cat with the white paw that he and Clear Sky had met on the rocks a few days before. The others were a small yellow tabby she-cat and a black and white tom. Fierce satisfaction surged through him when he saw that they all bore the marks of claws. Moonshadow lay panting at the edge of the thicket, a clump of fur torn away from his shoulder. Turtletail patted over and helped him to his paws. She had a scratched muzzle, and her fur was ruffled. "They attacked me!" Moonshadow exclaimed indignantly. Turtletail was unsympathetic. "What did you think would happen when you wandered off on your own, Fleabrain?" "I told you before," the black she-cat snapped, glaring at Clear Sky and Greywing. "You're not welcome here. Why don't you go back where you came from?" "Yes, and stop stealing our prey," the black and white tom added. "Your prey?" Moonshadow was outraged. "I caught that squirrel. That makes it my prey." The yellow tabby slid out her claws, her muscles tense as if she was about to leap at Moonshadow. Greywing braced himself in case the fight erupted again. "You fight like half-dead rabbits," the black and white tom snarled. "You only won this time because there are more of you, but just watch your tails if you come back." "Yeah," the yellow tabby added. "We'll be waiting." The black she-cat waved her tail, and all three forest cats headed off into the undergrowth. At the last moment, the yellow tabby darted over to the squirrel, grabbed it, and dragged it away with her. "Hey!" Moonshadow protested, staring after her. Clear Sky barreled into him, knocking him to the ground. "Have you learned nothing?" he demanded. "This isn't the time to start another fight." Huffing indignantly, Moonshadow got up and followed Clear Sky as he led the way back to the moor. Greywing found it hard going. The scratches on his side grew more painful with every step. Jackdaw's Cry was limping from a torn claw. Falling Feather had lost a paw full of fur, and blood was trickling from Clear Sky's shoulder. "This is winning? What happens if we lose?" Greywing wondered. "You've been told time and time again." Tall Shadow faced Moonshadow, her voice taut with fury and her tail lashing. "And still you don't listen." The hunting party had returned to the hollow on the moor, where Clear Sky had reported the clash with the forest cats. "Because it's a flea-brained order," Moonshadow retorted. This is a smaller space than we had in the mountains. Why do you want us to sit here, trembling like hunted rabbits? Gurwing had to submit that Moonshadow had a point. The hollow wasn't comfortable enough for a permanent home, and the prey-rich forest was too tantalizing for every cat to ignore. Tall Shadow's fury ebbed, and she twitched her whiskers thoughtfully. Okay, maybe we should hunt more regularly in the forest. We can't let those cats think they frighten us off. She fixed her brother with a fierce green glare. But you don't go off on your own again, is that clear? Moonshadow shrugged. I wouldn't have to if you'd let us hunt there properly. Cloud Spots patted up with a mouthful of herbs and set them down. I managed to find chervil, he meowed. Let me put some on your scratches. He dabbed juice into Turtletail's injured muzzle, then turned to Greywing, who lay down so that Cloud Spots could treat the scratches on his side. You know, Cloud Spots murmured as he patted the chewed up leaves into place. I'm not happy with the idea that we always have to fight these other cats. Maybe we should think about finding a way to live peacefully near them. I'm not sure, Greywing responded. I wish we could do that, but maybe we're just too different from them. On the following day, the sun had just cleared the horizon when Moonshadow announced that he was going hunting. Tall Shadow turned to look at him, her tail tip twitching. Before she could speak, Clear Sky stepped up beside Moonshadow. I'll come with you, he offered. Jagged Peak, Quick Water, and Shattered Ice jumped up to join them, and after a moment's hesitation, Tall Shadow gave a murmur of agreement. Okay, good luck. What about you? Clear Sky asked Greywing. Not this time, Greywing replied. His scratches from the fight were still sore, and he didn't think he would be much use at tracking prey under the trees. He tried to convince himself that he wasn't afraid of meeting the other cats again. Once the hunters had gone, Turtletail padded over to Greywing. Why don't we go for a walk? She suggested. No catching prey, no getting into fights. That sounds good, Greywing agreed. When they left the hollow, they could still see Clear Sky and the other hunters heading across the moor towards the forest. Are you following them? Greywing asked, surprised. No, I just want to go to the giant oaks again, Turtletail explained. I like it there. The vast hollow was quiet, except for the gentle rustling of the oak trees. Sunlight slanted through their branches, dappling the forest floor. Turtletail raced down the slope and over to the huge boulder between the four oaks, clawing her way up it until she stood on top. Come on, she called, waving her tail at Greywing. It's great up here. Greywing followed her more slowly and clambered up the rock, digging his claws into the tiny cracks, until he stood beside her. The sun-warmed surface felt good under his pads, and he lay down on one side to let the sunlight play over his fur. Turtletail sat beside him, her tail wrapped neatly over her forepaws, and sighed with contentment. I'd like to stay here forever. Drowsing, Greywing lost track of time until a voice from the bottom of the rock roused him. Hey, you up there! Side by side, Greywing and Turtletail peered over the edge. To his surprise, Greywing saw the plump tortoiseshell who had been watching him in Clear Sky, and they came to the hollow, looking up with a cheerful gleam in her yellow eyes. I'm Bumble, she announced confidently. I'm a house cat, though I guess you'd call me a kitty pet. Can I come up? Sure. Turtletail invited with a wave of her tail. To Greywing's eyes, the plump tortoiseshell didn't look as if she would be able to climb, but within a couple of heartbeats she had heaved herself to the top of the boulder beside him. Hello, Turtletail greeted her. I'm Turtletail, and this is Greywing. Wow, aren't you skinny? Bumble meowed, examining the two mountain cats with frank gaze. Haven't you managed to catch anything to eat? We've come a long way, Turtletail responded. Greywing was amused to see she looked slightly ruffled. There wasn't always time to hunt. Bumble blinked curiously. A long way? How long? From the other side of the moor? Farther than that, Greywing replied. You know those jagged rocks on the horizon? High stones? Said Turtletail. The kittypet's eyes stretched wide with astonishment. You came from there? Turtletail shook her head. No, from the other side of the high stones. We traveled for many, many sunrises. Why? Bumble sounded completely flummoxed. There wasn't enough prey to feed all of us where we came from, Greywing explained, and in the cold season we would often get stuck in the really deep snow, and sometimes cats got carried off by birds. There was a gleam in Turtletail's eyes, as if she was enjoying shocking this kitty pet. Huge birds, far bigger than the ones around here. That sounds so hard. Mabel exclaimed. You must have been cold and hungry and scared all the time. No wonder you came to live here. She looked around her with a happy flick of her tail. It's nice. But you don't live here, do you? Turtle asked. You live with two legs. That's weird. Weird? Bumble's whiskers twitched. It's great. My housefolk's den is so cozy. There's always plenty of food and nothing to be scared of. But what do you do all day? Turtle asked. Sleep mostly, the kitty pet said, or play with my housefolk's kids. And if I get tired of that, I come here. The wild cats don't bother you? Graywing asked. No, they know I'm no threat to their hunting. For a while, all three cats lazed in the sun. Graywing enjoyed the warmth on his fur, but after a while his growling belly reminded him that he hadn't eaten since the day before. Turtletail gave him a prod. We should hunt, she mewed. I'm glad I don't have to do that. Bumble gave them a friendly nod and scrambled down the rock. See you later. What a boring way to live, Turtletail commented, jumping to the forest floor. Graywing hesitated before following her. The rock underneath his paws had been a pleasant reminder of the mountains. Together the two cats headed back toward the open moor. I can't get used to hunting under trees, Turtletail confided to Graywing. They're too noisy, and I'm afraid of crashing into them. True, Graywing agreed. It's impossible to concentrate on prey. Turtletail padded on in silence for a while, then murmured, I wonder if we'll ever see Bumble again. I doubt it, Graywing responded. She won't want to talk to ferocious wildcats like us. We might eat her. Turtletail let out a meow of amusement. A heartbeat later, she stiffened. Rabbit, she whispered. By now they had left the trees behind and were climbing up the swell of moorland toward their hollow. The rabbit was hopping about not far from the crest, nibbling the grass. Both cats sprang forward, but the scratches on Graywing's flanks slowed him down, and Turtletail surged ahead. The rabbit bolted, vanishing over the crest of the hill, with Turtletail racing after it. When Graywing reached the top, he looked down to see Turtletail standing over the body of the rabbit. Great catch, he meowed as he bounded down to join her. After they had eaten their prey, Graywing and Turtletail headed back to the hollow. Clearsky and the rest of the hunting cats caught up as they arrived. Clearsky was dragging a squirrel, Moonshadow had a thrush, and the others were carrying mice. You should have seen Clearsky chase that squirrel, Checkapeake mumbled around his mouth full of prey. He went right to the top of the tree. Clearsky's eyes gleamed with pride. To Graywing, his brother looked more like his old self. Maybe the cloud of Brightstream's death is starting to lift at last. Tall Shadow dipped her head to the hunting cats as they carried their prey to the bottom of the hollow and set it down. Congratulations, you've done very well. As the other cats gathered around, she added, Thank you, Stoneteller, for sending us to this place where we can find prey. While the cats were eating, the sun began to sink behind hidestones, flooding the sky with scarlet. Graywing relaxed, glad that for once the cats were at peace with one another. Gazing at the landscape, which was starting to feel more familiar, he began to let himself believe that they might have reached the place that Stoneteller promised. Graywing paused at the edge of the moor and looked down at the tops of the 4 great oak trees. Already they were lusher than when he had first seen them. The sun was shining, the air was full of fresh scents, and he could see new plants springing up all around. I can't believe how rich the growth is. It was never like this in the mountains. Scratching his muscles, Graywing ran just for the joy of it, circling the edge of the moor, then heading toward the edge of the gorge. He had avoided the river ever since he had startled Clearsky into falling, but he remembered the excitement of the thundering water and the rocks that brought the mountain so vividly into his mind. Graywing hadn't gone far when he heard the squeal of a terrified rabbit, and farther away the yowl of a hunting cat. He halted as he saw the rabbit come tearing over the crest of the moorland, with the 2 cats he had met before, Gorse and Wind, close behind. Graywing's instinct told him to join the pursuit, but he wanted to avoid hostility and dug his claws firmly into the soil. The rabbit flashed past him, followed by Wind and Gorse, a couple of tail lengths behind. Suddenly the rabbit dived between 2 stones and vanished into a barely visible hole in the ground. Graywing let out a gasp of astonishment as Wind, without breaking stride, dived down the hole after it. Gorse skidded to a halt. That's not fair, he panted. You shouldn't keep going underground just because you're skinny. Graywing padded over to the great tabby Tom, who turned to him with a wary look in his eyes. It's okay, Graywing meowed. I'm not looking for a fight. What did you mean, going underground? You saw what she did, Gorse replied, angling his ears toward the rabbit hole. She's so scrawny she can fit down there. At that moment, Wind Up reappeared, puffing as she heaved herself out of the hole with the rabbit in her jaws. Growling watched her fascinated. "Can I go down there?" he asked, and looked at him surprised. "If you want," she replied, dropping the rabbit at Gorse's paws. "It's not my home, it's the rabbit's." Growling padded over to the burrow's entrance, passing his tongue over his jaws at the strong scent of rabbit. But the hole looked very small, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to try squeezing into it. Behind him, Win heaved a huge sigh. "I'll show you how. You're skinny enough to get anywhere I can." Pushing past Greywing, she led the way in. Greywing had to follow, otherwise he would look like a coward in front of these strange cats. He plunged into the hole, his pelt brushing the walls on either side. The burrow was dark and scruffy, and Greywing found it harder and harder to put one paw in front of another. He was wrestling with panic when he felt Wind struggle to turn in front of him and give him a strong shove down a side tunnel. "That way," she hissed, following him in the new direction. At once, clearer air stirred Greywing's whiskers, and he forced himself forward, with the occasional prod from Wind, until he emerged from another hole among the roots of a gorse bush. He staggered into the open and stood with his chest heaving. "Mouse brain," Wind said, though her voice was entirely unfriendly. "Don't do that again. If you panic down there, you'll get lost before you know it." Greywing was growing calmer now that he was in the fresh air again, with the huge sky above him and the breeze in his whiskers. Maybe that wasn't such a good idea, he mused. But he was still fascinated by the knowledge that there was a network of tunnels underneath the moor. A claw scratch of memory took him back to the elders' tales of tunnels in their old home by the lake. They set some sort of challenge to young cats who had to find their way out. Greywing shivered. "I'm glad we don't do that anymore. I'm not sure my tribe mates would ever see me again." Greywing tipped his head toward Gorse and Wind. "Thanks for showing me," he mewed. "Maybe I'll see you again sometime." The two cats bade him a rather wary farewell. Greywing was just relieved that this encounter with them hasn't been hostile.